Newington in Kent looks much the same as it did 50 years ago, which is quite an achievement, really, when you consider that over the top of this embankment is one of the largest construction projects in the world. Now, it's hard to disguise the UK terminal for the Channel Tunnel. After all, it covers some 350 acres. But in this crowded corner of Kent, they're doing their best to minimise its impact.
For example, the shuttle trains carrying cars from France will loop round for the return journey in this separate tunnel under the embankment, so that the village of Newington, on the left, is screened from the noise. On this part of the site will be the toll booths and customs checkpoints for vehicles waiting to board the trains. And already you can see the layout of the access roads and railway tracks. This will be a branch of the Ashford to Folkestone main line, carrying fast international passenger and freight traffic. These rails will carry trains through the terminal site and directly into the tunnel.
Meanwhile, the trucks and cars waiting to load for France will pass over bridges across the tracks, then drive down these ramps onto one of 8 platforms in the vast loading and unloading area. The aim is for a peak of some 600 vehicles to be driving onto the trains every hour.
That target affects the design of the shuttle trains themselves. For instance, on mock-up wagons in Belgium, they're checking that the ventilation system can get rid of all the exhaust fumes from the vehicles as they load and unload. Meanwhile, further afield, in Canada, the very first shuttle wagon body has just rolled off the production line.
That left-hand tunnel is where the trains will disappear on their 35-minute journey to France. At peak times, these trains will be chasing each other at the rate of 1 every 4 minutes. It's a crowded schedule, but maintaining the maximum use of the tunnel is crucial to its financial success. In the hot and damp atmosphere down here, there'll have to be regular checks of the equipment and the track itself. That means closing a section of one tunnel and routing all of the trains going in either direction down the single track of the other tunnel. To keep those sections as short as possible, they're building 2 crossovers under the channel, and the British one is 8 kilometres out from the coast.
At these crossover points, the 2 running tunnels are brought together in a huge cavern, and the service tunnel, which normally runs between the main tunnels, is rerouted to one side. And it was through here that workers first got access to the cavern, which was actually hollowed out before the running tunnels reached it. The first real proof of the surveyor's skill came when the running tunnels broke through at precisely the right point in the cavern.
And now the cavern looks like this: 160 metres long, 21 metres wide. The tunnel boring machines have long been and gone down those tunnels there on their way to meet the French, leaving behind the biggest underground space ever constructed beneath the sea. The bed of the English Channel, by the way, is just 36 metres above here, and some of that seawater is actually leaking in. Definitely salty. Shortly they're going to be putting up a membrane here, which is totally waterproof, and then a concrete cast lining which will support and enclose the cavern.
To complete it, the 2 tracks will be separated by a wall and a set of doors which will be drawn back whenever the crossover is in use.
And the service tunnel? Well, it's just through here. It's extraordinary to think that at one time this was the only access for the men and machines who arrived to dig that cavern. And they reached this point via the service tunnel. And this too is not very wide, just 4.8 meters. Eventually it'll be used just by the service engineers to travel up and down. But this week it'll be making a little bit of history. 14 kilometers up there, this British service tunnel is just a few meters away from its French counterpart. And on Saturday, a small linking tunnel will be dug by hand allowing the English and French engineers to meet for the very first time. When France and Britain are joined, though, the whole of the Channel Tunnel site, from the Shakespeare Cliffs to Sangatte, becomes a frontier zone. And just to prove it, from now on, everyone entering this site has to produce one of these